Get ready for 160 word per minute shorthand dictation. Start. In our preoccupation with managing the COVID-19 pandemic, we should not lose sight of special issues that may pose problems for women in the reproductive age group. The special issues are of two kinds: on that relates through medical management of pregnancy and newborn care. The World Health Organization (WHO) and the Indian Council of Medical Research (ICMR) have provided guidelines to address this issue. The second relates to the advisability of deliberately delaying pregnancy until the epidemic wanes and the disease becomes endemic. All available guidelines are silent on this issue. Is there a need for exercising a choice of limiting of pregnancy? What should be a wise policy for the government of India, or for that matter any government, the ICMR and WHO on this matter? Need for protocols follow-up. The SARS-CoV-2 virus that causes COVID-19 has a special predilection for the cells that form the inner lining of blood vessels. Therefore, organs that have a large number of blood vessels are particularly at risk. The placenta, a unique organ in pregnancy, the source of nourishment for the growing fetus, is highly vascular. It has been clearly demonstrated that in mothers infected close to the time of delivery, the virus can infect the placenta. A small percentage of newborn babies, 1.4% of such mothers, have neonatal infection acquired from the mother. While most newborn babies do not develop clinical disease, rare neurologic problems have been described in them. In this context, it is pertinent that in India maternity hospitals routine reverse transcription polymerase chain reaction RT-PCR testing of pregnant mothers admitted for delivery reveal that about 8 to 10% of mothers are indeed infected by SARS-CoV-2. The ICMR along with the professional bodies concerned should ensure that the treating teams are aware of the potential for transplacental transmission of the virus and establish protocols for careful periodic follow-up of the newborn of infected mothers. If the virus can infect the placenta in term pregnancy, can it not affect the placenta in the first 3 months, first trimester of pregnancy? The important question that comes to mind therefore is whether infection of the mother during the first trimester of pregnancy, the crucial period for the development of organ systems in the fetus, can cause congenital abnormalities. In the first trimester of pregnancy, many infections such as those caused by rubella and Zika virus cause severe congenital abnormalities in the fetus. Recognition of this fact led to a WHO approved government policy of routine rubella vaccination as part of the immunization schedule of children. Issue of contraception. In the context of COVID-19, it is too early to say whether viral infection during the first trimester will cause congenital abnormalities, but the potential for such an occurrence is real. If it is a florid abnormality, it would be known by now, but if subtle, by the time the effects on the fetus are recognized, it may be too late. Therefore, there is a need to anticipate this eventuality and be prepared for it. In the epidemic context, it is wiser to be cautious and advise effective contraception to postpone pregnancy till the probability of maternal viral infection is minimal. Cutting infection threat. What are the advantages in adopting such a policy? If women adopt contraception, they will not need antenatal clinic visits, which during epidemic times pose a risk of contracting infection in the clinic. Antenatal women constitute a large proportion of subjects who need to visit hospitals regularly, and considerable proportions of healthcare workers at the primary and secondary levels are occupied with their care. If this demand is less because women in reproductive age group practice contraception, there will be less pressure on the healthcare system, which is already struggling under the burden of this epidemic. These healthcare workers can be deployed for the much needed care of COVID-19 patients, non-COVID illness, and more importantly, the ensuing COVID-19 vaccination program, a mammoth task in India. The ongoing crisis in eastern Ladakh has raised many issues on the range and trajectory of India-China relations. Among these is the future relevance of various agreements that were signed between the two countries to maintain peace and tranquility along the line of actual control (LAC) that serves as a de facto border. Agreements over the years. Some experts argue that the genesis of the current problem lies in the first agreement signed between India and China in 1993. They say India should not have accepted the term LAC in this agreement, as there was no clarity as to where this line lay on the ground, and this ambiguity community has forced India to adopt a policy of appeasement on the LAC. The absence of a delineated LAC is undoubtedly problematic, but it would also be appropriate to put the various agreements in a historical context and dispassionately analyze their impact and their future relevance. After the 1962 war, the India-China border was loosely controlled by both sides with a fairly sparse deployment of troops. That did not mean that border claims were diluted by either side, as witnessed in the bloody clash at Nathula in 1967. The China Study Group, established in 1976, gave clarity to India's claims by laying down the patrolling points and guiding the scope of military activity along the LAC. A significant change in border management occurred after the Chinese occupation of a post in the Samdorong Chu Valley in 1986. The massive response by the Indian Army speaked realization on both sides that the boundary issue needed to be brought to the fore, and pending a settlement, some mechanism must be evolved to keep peace along the LAC. I was posted as a young major in the China desk of the Military Operations Directorate when Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi made the breakthrough visit to Beijing in 1988. After his visit, we had started working on a number of drafts on confidence building measures along the LAC. Many of these recommendations were incorporated in the agreement on the maintenance of peace and tranquility along the line of actual control in the Indian-China border area, signed in 1993. The 1993 agreement formalized the LAC concept. However, understanding that there were differing perceptions, it called for creating a group of diplomatic and military experts for resolution of differences between the two sides on the alignment of the line of actual control. The agreement assured the use of force to settle the boundary issue, and as a part of confidence building measures, restricted military exercise and air activity close to the LAC. As an essential part of the agreement was reduction in military forces along the line of actual control, in conformity with the requirements of the principle of mutual and equal security to ceilings to be mutually agreed. This was followed by the 1996 agreement between the Government of the Republic of India and the Government of the People's Republic of China on confidence building measures in the military field along the line of actual control in the India-China border areas. It called for reducing or limiting military forces to minimum levels and limiting the deployment of major armaments such as tanks, artillery, guns and missiles to mutually agreed levels. A 2005 protocol, or the protocol between the Government of the Republic of India and the Government of the People's Republic of China on modalities for the implementation of confidence building measures in the military field along the line of actual control in the India-China border areas, added more confidence building measures outlining the procedure to be adopted when soldiers of the two sides came to a face-to-face situation while patrolling areas where there was a differing perception of the LAC. The protocol also agreed to expand the mechanism of border meeting points are exchanged between the two militaries. Interestingly, there was no mention of a reduction in military forces. Unemployment aspects. Did these agreements serve a useful purpose? Undoubtedly, they resulted in an extended period of calm along the LAC and ensured that not a shot was fired. However, two unimplemented aspects of the agreements, combined with a shift in military posture by both sides, has led to an erosion of confidence building measures between the two armies in the past few years. First, the differences in the alignment of the LAC could not be resolved. Attempts were made and maps were exchanged of the central sector, but there were apparent irreconcilable differences over the western sector, and the process stalled in 2002. Second, the agreement on reducing military forces along the LAC to the minimum was neither seriously discussed nor implemented. In the late 1980s, when reapproachment with China was being considered, the Indian Army looked towards Pakistan as the major threat. However, even at the time, papers produced by my superiors in the Military Operations Directorate stated that in about 15 years, India's primary adversary would be China. By the mid-2000s, the northern borders came into increasing focus of the military and the government. In 2006, a decision was taken to build 73 strategic roads along the LAC. In 2010, two new divisions were raised to strengthen deployment in Arunachal Pradesh and additional formation were deployed in Ladakh. In 2013, the Indian government sanctioned the raising of a mountain strike corps for the northern border. As infrastructure improved on the Indian side and larger forces were available for patrolling, the LAC face-offs with Chinese patrols increased. In many cases, the Chinese soldiers complained that they were being prevented from going up to areas that they had traditionally patrolled, but India was defending its perception of the LAC more robustly.